Top 25 Online Teaching Interview Questions and Answers. Online teaching has become an important part of modern education, and schools, colleges, training companies, and e-learning platforms now look for teachers who can deliver engaging lessons through digital tools. In an online teaching interview, employers want to know whether you can manage a virtual classroom, keep students focused, use technology confidently, explain concepts clearly, and support learners with different needs. They also want to see your communication skills, preparation style, patience, and ability to handle technical issues. These interview questions and answers will help you prepare strong, practical responses for an online teaching role. 1. Why do you want to work as an online teacher? I want to work as an online teacher because online education gives teachers the opportunity to reach students beyond one physical classroom. I enjoy using digital tools to make lessons more interactive, flexible, and accessible. Online teaching also allows me to support different learning styles through videos, quizzes, screen sharing, slides, and discussion activities. I believe a good online teacher can create a strong learning environment even through a screen. This role interests me because it combines teaching skills, technology, communication, and creativity in a meaningful way. 2. What makes you a good fit for an online teaching position? I believe I am a good fit for an online teaching position because I am comfortable using technology and I understand how to keep students engaged in a virtual setting. I prepare lessons carefully, explain concepts clearly, and use different methods to check student understanding. I am patient, organized, and able to adapt when students need extra support. I also understand that online teaching requires strong communication, good time management, and quick problem solving. My goal is always to make learning simple, interactive, and productive for every student. 3. How do you keep students engaged during an online class? To keep students engaged during an online class, I avoid long lectures and use a mix of activities. I ask questions, use polls, include short quizzes, encourage students to respond in chat, and invite them to explain ideas in their own words. I also use visuals, examples, and real-life situations to make the lesson more interesting. I check understanding frequently instead of waiting until the end. I believe students stay more focused when they feel involved, so I create opportunities for participation throughout the class. 4. What online teaching tools have you used? I have used common online teaching tools such as Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, PowerPoint, Canva, and online quiz platforms like Kahoot or Google Forms. I can use screen sharing, breakout rooms, whiteboards, chat, and file sharing to support learning. I also understand how learning management systems help organize assignments, materials, grades, and communication. I am always willing to learn new tools because every school or platform may use different technology. The main goal is to use tools that improve learning, not distract from it. 5. How do you handle technical problems during an online lesson? If a technical problem happens during an online lesson, I stay calm and avoid making students feel frustrated. I first try simple solutions, such as checking the internet connection, restarting screen sharing, adjusting audio settings, or switching to backup material. I also prepare alternative options before class, such as downloadable notes, recorded explanations, or extra activities. If the issue affects many students, I communicate clearly and adjust the lesson plan. I believe preparation and calm communication are the best ways to handle technical problems professionally. 6. How do you manage discipline in a virtual classroom? Managing discipline in a virtual classroom starts with clear expectations. At the beginning, I explain rules for microphones, cameras, chat behavior, participation, and respect. I keep students engaged because boredom often leads to distraction. If a student interrupts or behaves inappropriately, I address it calmly and privately when possible. I may use platform controls like muting, waiting rooms, or chat limits if needed. I focus on maintaining a respectful learning environment without embarrassing students. Consistency, patience, and clear communication help prevent most online classroom management problems. 7. How do you check whether students understand the lesson? I check student understanding throughout the lesson, not only at the end. I ask short questions, use quick quizzes, request examples, and ask students to summarize key points in their own words. I also watch for signs of confusion, such as silence, repeated mistakes, or unrelated answers. In online classes, I may use polls, chat responses, reaction buttons, or small tasks to measure understanding. If many students are struggling, I slow down, explain differently, or give another example. Regular checking helps me teach more effectively. 8. How do you prepare for an online class? When preparing for an online class, I first review the learning objective and decide what students should understand by the end. Then I prepare slides, examples, activities, questions, and any resources needed. I also test links, videos, audio, and screen sharing materials before the class begins. I think about possible student difficulties and prepare simple explanations. I also plan timing carefully because online lessons need structure. Good preparation helps the class run smoothly, keeps students engaged, and reduces the chance of confusion or technical delays. 9. How would you support students who are struggling online? I would support struggling students by first identifying the reason they are having difficulty. It may be a lack of understanding, low confidence, poor internet access, language barriers, or difficulty using technology. I would provide extra explanations, simpler examples, recorded lessons, practice tasks, or one-on-one support if available. I would also encourage students to ask questions without fear. Online students can sometimes feel isolated, so I would communicate regularly and give constructive feedback. My aim is to help them improve step by step. 10. How do you make online lessons interactive? I make online lessons interactive by including students in the learning process. Instead of only presenting information, I ask questions, create discussions, use digital whiteboards, share short tasks, and include quizzes or polls. I may divide students into breakout rooms for group activities if appropriate. I also encourage students to use chat, reactions, and voice responses. Interactive lessons help students stay alert and remember the material better. I believe online teaching should feel like a real classroom experience, not just a video lecture. 11. What is your approach to giving feedback online? My approach to giving feedback online is to be clear, specific, and supportive. I do not simply say an answer is wrong. I explain what needs improvement and how the student can correct it. I give positive feedback when students make progress, because encouragement is important in online learning. I may use written comments, voice notes, rubrics, or live discussion depending on the task. Timely feedback is very important because students need to know where they stand. Good feedback helps students learn with confidence. 12. How do you build relationships with students online? Building relationships with students online requires effort because there is less face-to-face interaction. I start by creating a friendly and respectful class atmosphere. I greet students, learn their names, encourage participation, and show interest in their progress. I also use positive communication and make students feel comfortable asking questions. Small actions, like checking in with quiet students or praising effort, can build trust. When students feel respected and supported, they are more likely to participate. A strong teacher-student relationship improves motivation and learning outcomes. 13. How do you handle students who do not participate? If students do not participate, I first try to understand why. Some students may be shy, confused, distracted, or dealing with technical issues. I would use different participation methods, such as chat responses, polls, short written tasks, or simple yes or no questions. I may call on students gently, but I avoid putting them under too much pressure. I also create a safe environment where mistakes are accepted as part of learning. Over time, consistent encouragement and interactive activities can help quiet students become more involved. 14. How do you adapt lessons for different learning styles? I adapt lessons for different learning styles by using a variety of teaching methods. For visual learners, I use slides, diagrams, charts, and images. For auditory learners, I explain concepts clearly and encourage discussion. For students who learn by doing, I include practice tasks, examples, quizzes, and activities. I also provide written notes or recordings when possible, so students can review later. Online teaching gives many tools to support different learners. My goal is to present information in more than one way so every student has a chance to succeed. 15. How do you assess students in an online environment? In an online environment, I assess students through quizzes, assignments, class participation, projects, presentations, written responses, and live questioning. I use both formal and informal assessment methods. For example, a quiz can show what students remember, while discussion can show how well they understand ideas. I also look at progress over time, not just one score. Clear instructions and fair grading criteria are important in online assessment. I believe assessment should help students improve, so I combine grades with useful feedback and guidance. 16. How do you prevent cheating during online assessments? To prevent cheating during online assessments, I design questions that test understanding rather than simple memorization. I may use application-based questions, time limits, randomized questions, oral follow-ups, or project-based assessments. I also explain academic honesty expectations clearly before the assessment. When possible, I use open book formats where students must explain reasoning in their own words. The goal is not only to catch cheating, but to create assessments that encourage real learning. Clear rules, good question design, and consistent monitoring help maintain fairness in online testing. 17. How do you communicate with parents or guardians online? When communicating with parents or guardians online, I keep the tone professional, respectful, and clear. I provide updates about student progress, attendance, behavior, and areas that need improvement. I avoid vague comments and give specific examples when needed. I may use email, parent portals, scheduled video meetings, or messages through the school system. I also listen to parents' concerns and work with them to support the student. Good communication with parents helps create a strong support system, especially when students are learning from home. 18. How do you handle a student with poor internet connection? If a student has a poor internet connection, I try to support them without making them feel left behind. I may provide lesson recordings, notes, slides, assignments, or summaries after class. During live sessions, I allow them to respond through chat if audio or video does not work. I also avoid making camera use mandatory if it creates connection problems. If the issue continues, I would inform the appropriate school staff or support team. Flexibility is important because online learning depends heavily on access to technology. 19. What would you do if students are distracted during online class? If students are distracted during online class, I would first make the lesson more active. I might ask a question, start a quick poll, give a short task, or invite students to respond in chat. I would also keep explanations focused and avoid speaking for too long without interaction. If one student is repeatedly distracted, I would address it calmly and privately if possible. I believe distraction is common online, so the teacher must use structure, energy, and engagement strategies to bring students back to the lesson. 20. How do you create a positive online learning environment? I create a positive online learning environment by making students feel safe, respected, and included. I set clear rules, encourage polite communication, and respond patiently to questions. I use positive reinforcement and recognize effort, not only correct answers. I also make lessons organized so students know what to expect. A positive environment helps students feel confident enough to participate. Online learning can feel distant, so I try to bring warmth, energy, and structure into every class. Students learn better when they feel supported. 21. How do you manage your time during an online lesson? I manage time during an online lesson by planning each section before class. I decide how much time to spend on introduction, explanation, activities, practice, questions, and review. I keep an eye on the clock and adjust when needed. If a discussion takes longer than expected, I may shorten another activity or provide extra material after class. Online lessons can lose focus quickly, so timing is very important. A clear structure helps students stay engaged and ensures that the main learning objective is completed. 22. How do you use technology to improve learning? I use technology to improve learning by choosing tools that support the lesson goal. For example, I use slides for clear explanations, videos for demonstrations, quizzes for quick checks, whiteboards for problem solving, and learning platforms for assignments and resources. I do not use technology just because it looks impressive. The tool must make learning easier, clearer, or more interactive. Technology also allows students to review materials after class, which supports independent learning. Used properly, Technology can make online teaching more effective and engaging. 23. How do you motivate students in an online class? I motivate students in an online class by making lessons relevant, interactive, and encouraging. I explain why the topic matters and connect it to real-life examples when possible. I also set clear goals so students know what they are working toward. I praise effort, improvement, and participation. Some students lose motivation online because they feel isolated, so I try to create a sense of connection. I also use small challenges, quizzes, and activities to keep energy high. Motivation improves when students feel involved and capable. 24. How do you handle feedback from supervisors or students? I handle feedback from supervisors or students with an open and professional attitude. I believe feedback helps teachers improve. If a supervisor suggests changes to my teaching method, lesson structure, or technology use, I listen carefully and apply the advice where appropriate. Student feedback is also useful because it shows how learners experience the class. I do not take constructive criticism personally. Instead, I use it to improve engagement, clarity, and classroom management. A strong online teacher should always be willing to learn and adapt. 25. Why should we hire you as an online teacher? You should hire me as an online teacher because I understand that online teaching requires more than subject knowledge. It requires preparation, communication, patience, technology skills, and the ability to keep students engaged through a screen. I can create structured lessons, use digital tools effectively, support struggling students, and maintain a positive virtual classroom. I am also flexible and willing to adapt to your platform, curriculum, and teaching standards. My focus is always on helping students understand, participate, and make real progress in their learning. Preparing for an online teaching interview means showing that you can teach effectively in a digital environment, not just in a traditional classroom. Employers want teachers who can use technology confidently, manage virtual classrooms, communicate clearly, support different learners, and keep students engaged from beginning to end. The best answers should sound practical, professional, and student-focused. Use these questions and answers to practice your responses, but personalize them with your own experience, teaching style, and subject knowledge. With strong preparation, you can show that you are ready to succeed as an online teacher.